But we begin with the war between Israel and Hamas. Israeli officials say they're still preparing for a ground invasion of Gaza as they increase those airstrikes over the area.
The Gaza Health Ministry says nearly 6,000 Palestinians have been killed since this war began, and that death toll prompting the UN Secretary General and some world leaders to call for a ceasefire. CBS News' Ian Lee joins us live now from Tel Aviv. Ian.
Hi there, Ryan and Dana. You know, the one thing that the UN wants is that ceasefire, members of the UN, so they can get that humanitarian aid in. 8 trucks were able to make it yesterday, but that is just a far cry from what the UN says is needed, about 100 trucks a day. They say that no fuel has been allowed in, and Israel says that's because Hamas uses it for their rockets, but that has also forced at least 6 hospitals to close, according to the World Health Organization, because they can't power their generators. This morning, Israeli defense officials said they conducted retaliatory strikes in the West Bank and against Syrian military assets.
We do not want this war to widen.
At a United Nations Security Council meeting yesterday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken repeated warnings to outside actors, particularly Iran-backed militant groups, not to get involved.
If Iran or its proxies attack U.S. personnel anywhere, make no mistake, we will defend our people.
Israel increased its airstrikes on Gaza amid growing calls for a ceasefire.
It is vital to be clear on principles, starting with the fundamental principle of respecting and protecting civilians.
But the White House says a ceasefire right now would only benefit Hamas.
This is war. It is ugly and it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt.
Yesterday, more trucks filled with food, water, and medicine flowed into Gaza from Egypt, but aid workers say fuel is what's most vital to keep water systems and hospitals operational. Israeli officials say Hamas has fuel and they should be supplying it to Gaza. Meanwhile, one of the hostages released by Hamas, 85-year-old Yocheved Lifshitz, is speaking out, saying she went through hell but was treated kindly and provided for. Her husband is one of the more than 200 hostages still being held. And just in the past 24 hours, we have seen hundreds of strikes by Israel on what they say are Hamas targets. And as well, Hamas has responded with rockets. This war, even though that ground invasion hasn't started, is still raging on. Ryan, Dana?
You know, Ian, we've been talking about a potential ground war or ground invasion for days now. We've been hearing it's going to happen soon. Do you have any updates this hour?
Yeah, Dana, you know, that's the one question we've been trying to get an answer to is when is this ground invasion going to happen? It seems to be kicking down the road. There could be a number of reasons why. One, we've talked about before is the hostages, just to see if there's any effort to get the hostages out. We know the Egyptians and the Qataris are working hard behind the scenes to try to free them, but also the humanitarian corridor. The United States wants to get that established. We know that even just before this war, Gaza would get about 455 trucks a day of food and other supplies in to maintain it. But then there's also the threat from the regional actors. The United States is still getting military assets in the region. That could be another reason because Iran has said they're going to possibly attack Israel if Israel launches that ground invasion. But we did hear from the Prime Minister who met with troops saying that it's going to happen soon. The Israeli military says they're waiting for the green light from the politicians. So really a lot up in the air on when this ground invasion is actually going to happen.
Certainly a major concern about this conflict spreading throughout the region in the Middle East. Ian Lee reporting live from Tel Aviv. Thank you again for joining us.